President Cyril Ramaphosa's reception at King Misuzulu KaZwelithini's coronation yesterday may have not been what he had wished for. Crowds were rather unresponsive to his initial attempts to engage. Let's take a look at that moment.
President, the podium is yours. Thank you. Okay, Stella Resort. Long and Shale Party. Thank you.
Ngiyabonga Minister Dlamini Zuma. Wena wendlovu. Wena wendlovu. Ayete. Program directors, Your Majesty King Misuzulu KaZwelithini.
So was this moment an indication of KwaZulu-Natal's vote in the ANC's upcoming elective conference? Let's try and get some analysis on that moment. We're joined by political sciences and public policy lecturer at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, Dr. Fikile Vilakazi, who was at the stadium and attended the event. Thank you very much for availing yourself this morning. Maybe you can just tell us, as somebody who was in the stadium, right, and when the president took to the podium, was it as awkward as we saw it on television?
Good morning to you and good morning to viewers at home. It was a little bit awkward, I think, especially when you saw how the crowd, for example, as the president was greeting all protocol at the stadium, when he started to mention names like former President Jacob Zuma, you know, the response was different, and of course when the king also, you know, spoke after the president, there was a different kind of reception compared to the reception that the people gave him. And it's not surprising. We do know KwaZulu-Natal's emotions politically, psychologically, and so on towards the leadership of the African National Congress, but also towards Umsholozi. It's something that the province has always been able to demonstrate comparatively to other leaders of the African National Congress, including the president, incumbent.
Sure, you speak of the people's emotions towards the African National Congress. Just remind us of what their emotions are.
Well, I mean, you know, the emotions of the citizens of KwaZulu-Natal, but generally that of South Africa, have been volatile. You know, they've been sort of chaotic when it comes to the relationship that we have with the African National Congress's leadership, given the whole cloud of corruption that and scandals and really the kind of public administration that we have been experiencing in the hands of the African National Congress, which has been nothing less than pain, which has been nothing less than, I would even say now with the outcomes of the Zondo Commission report, probably, you know, leaning towards destruction of our nation. So there's that emotion in the country generally. The psyche of the nation is such that there is such skepticism around the African National Congress's leadership and its ability even to recover us from this place. So President Cyril Ramaphosa's leadership is really at a time where the country is volatile. And of course, people are going to always express that kind of skepticism in his presence. Phala Phala has just made it worse. You know, the scandals around Phala Phala, but also the issue around the public protector, the advocates, you know, in the manner that this matter is being dealt with on the public domain. So South Africans are really skeptical and emotionally disturbed, I have to say. I think the majority of citizens, most of us are really leaning towards that. Of course, there's hope. I think there's always going to be hope, but that hope is in our hands. That hope is in saying 2024 is a new era for our nation and for the African National Congress. It could be that it's an end of an era of the liberation struggle, but perhaps the beginning of a new era of public administration where the ANC has got to see itself not just as a liberation movement, but also as an employer, but also as an organization that is not just for the ANC, but for society. And that is calling for drastical changes within the organization, but also is calling for a renewed form of relationship with society. So much that For example, you don't do cadre deployment on the grounds of someone being a member of a political party that you belong to, but you also look at the role of other citizens and other key players, civil society organizations, influential people within society who can really restructure public administration in ways that can heal our nation, in ways that can bring some sense of rebirth, right? So that is the emotion that I'm talking about, and it really requires emotional intelligence, not just political intelligence, emotional intelligence, but even spiritual intelligence on the part of the ruling party, but also on the political system in its entirety. Because as we are going towards coalitions, I can tell you now, it requires all political parties to express a certain level of emotional maturity, spiritual maturity, added to political maturity. And that tells us then that our democracy is in that place. It's in that place where we have matured. But it's about the bodies within the democratic system that have to then demonstrate that capability to rise towards that level of maturity. And it means our political parties, it means the manner in which that we do voting as we go towards 2024. It means our abilities to discern that we are in that place, and then we travel together towards a new phase, a new era for our political system. It is clearly coalitions that are not just political party based. It is coalitions that also have got to center the citizen. Right, we are going towards this. So that's the emotion that I'm talking about.
Dr. Vilakazi, to your last point, when you speak of the manner of voting, you've spoken about South Africans being emotionally disturbed. You speak of rebirth of not only the ANC, but the political system in South Africa. You speak of drastical changes that are needed, tying that to the electorate and to the everyday South African who takes a look at their quality of life, who takes a look at the fact that 28 years into this democracy, while we have touched the dial, we haven't done nearly enough, right? As you still find there's a majority of people who are systematically excluded from this democracy or enjoying this democracy. The African National Congress has been accused of becoming the sideshow with all of these leaders. We know that KwaZulu-Natal has thrown its weight behind Zwelithini, the lukewarm reception that the president received yesterday. We can talk about the leaders of the party, we can talk about the political parties, and we can talk about emotional maturity of all parties, but what do you say to a South African who didn't vote the last time, especially when we take a look at voter apathy in the country? How do you encourage them to go out and vote, because all they care about is that their quality of life is improved?
It's quite a very, very painful conversation to have with each other as a nation. But I would say that we just need to understand what is the role of voting. What is the power of voting? Because we speak, right? The government that is in place is actually the government of the people, theoretically speaking, because democracy is a government by the people. We vote these governments into power, which means we can also unvote them out of power. We can choose leaders for ourselves. And I think it is that level of understanding of what it means when we go to the ballot. When we put that cross in the ballot and we vote President Cyril Ramaphosa into the second term, it means then that we are continuing the ANC in the manner that it is. You know, there was a question that was asked by the Pan-Africanist Congress, you know, and basically the Black Consciousness Collective, including the AZAPO and so on, that is saying if South Africans were to give us the majority vote, as they've done, you know, with the African National Congress, you know, perhaps we could be at a different place around the question of land. KwaZulu-Natal commemoration today reminded me of that a lot, because we've got the king that is being given a certificate now. He's a custodian of Ingonyama Trust, right? Ingonyama Trust owns about, I think, more than 2 million hectares of land in KwaZulu-Natal. Now, when we go to vote in 2024, these are issues that are at the center of the hearts of the people, not just in KwaZulu-Natal, but in South Africa. The question of land recovery, really, like in real terms, to say land is our economy. Land is really our healing. And if the king is coming into place with the President Cyril Ramaphosa and the leadership, perhaps even the leadership that's going to come in 2024, and for all of us as we go and vote, we need to think about these questions to bring in some people or a collective of people that have got the question of land at heart in real terms. People are going to make sure that we really shift this thing. I'm telling you, as we speak now this morning, KwaZulu-Natal, we've got people who have died. People continue to die here in the name of land, even including the land of the Trust. We've got Umama Usizane Ngubane, for example, who passed away just during COVID. She belongs to the Rural Women's Movement. The Rural Women's Movement, they went to court, of course, they won the case against Ngonyama Trust, speaking about these issues of land, where people are being removed from the land of their ancestors and ancestresses. And these are voters who have to then go back to 2024 and vote again. So voting is a very, very powerful instrument of democracy, fellow South Africans. We need to really be decisive when we get to the polls. And we can decide also not to go to the polls if we are feeling like the kinds of governments that we put in place do not speak to the issues that we need. We have the power and the ability to think about reorganizing South Africa in ways that are healing all of us, including political parties, because our political parties are wounded, my sister. You know, we come from a history of apartheid that has wounded everyone psychologically, emotionally, and politically, including our political parties, by the way. The people that are leading the country did not have an opportunity, for example, to learn at public administration, most of them. Some of them do have that, but these are people who are carrying guns and spears most of the time, and that is the kind of engaging that they have known, you know, leading to us towards a liberation, which is something that was good. I think the struggle needed that at that time, but we are in a different phase now. So we need to look at that. What kind of leadership do we want to put in place? Are we going to heal ourselves? We need healers here in South Africa. Izangoma, Izanusi, Zaguti, people like Ubaba Ukredo Muta passed away during COVID without any recognition. He has been speaking to the nation, words of wisdom and words that are saying, South Africa, listen. These are the things that you need to put in place. Spirit is talking, you know. And when you talk about this is Zulu, there's Ibandla Lagashembe here that plays a very particular spiritual role. We've got issues of moral degeneration in the country. We've got issues of ethical degeneration. We need the spiritualities of our country to come together. But what we have seen, my sister, our government has failed to listen to Izanusi Zaguti. Our government has failed to listen to spiritual voices that have been speaking, voices of reason, to say, South Africa, we can heal this. We can do it. But let us do it together. Not just political parties, not just this power hunger game. We are done with that. We have a responsibility to heal South Africa, and South Africans are still saying, we are here, we are available. And I know that sometimes when we speak, people protest on the streets, it is received badly as if we are just these kinds of people who want to make a bunch of noise all the time. But that is the kind of expression that the Constitution gives us. Because our government never really makes time to even talk to us, you know, in ways that are saying, we've got ideas. We know how we want this country to be. So those are the things, my sister, for me that yesterday was about. It was a relation. At the same time, it was a spirit of celebration of Ubkosi Bagwazulu. Perhaps also an imagination of how we can decolonize ourselves. Because it was not just about Amazulu, it was about Abangoni, various kings and queens landed in our shores, people really that originated here, KwaZulu, who migrated because of conflicts that we have experienced over time during colonization. So there's place for the kingdoms and the queendoms. We've seen the Queen Masala Nabo from the Mujajis was here also. It was beautiful. It was really beautiful. Ubkosi Betu Nobkosi Gazi, you know, of KwaZulu was really celebrated, let me say, of the Nguni nations put together here. So there is something there also about the kind of voting that we put in place in 2024, because many of us have been saying, let us also decolonize ourselves. The passing away of the British Queen also is there's not a coincidence, my sister, that Misuzulu rises here today, and many of us, this is happening about 70 years, we have not seen this. And the Queen in England passes on as well. This is an era that is emerging. It's a new era. We are decolonizing ourselves, but we need to open our eyes as we do that. We're not going to do it through corruption and lack of ethics. So we need to go back. I can say a lot. I'm very passionate about this. My sister, please stop me.
I can tell, Dr. Vilakazi, but point well made. We need to be honest with ourselves, right? Political Sciences and Public Policy Lecturer at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, Dr. Fikile Vilakazi. Thank you.